It's back in note form. We know we want to handle things differently if we receive different props. So how do we get that out of there? Again, look at our React Dev Tools. Remember, your dev tools are your friends. If you don't remember, like, is it this.props.what? If you don't remember how to get to that route param, just find that component in your React Dev Tools. We know it's form, note form right here. And we see all our props. Ah, yeah, match, params, ID. That's how we get to it. So it should be this.props.match.params.id, right? So const new ID, set it to this.props.match.params.id. That is a lot of dots. So I believe we also have all the notes in next props, right? So we could say this.props. I think set current note is being passed in. Let's just say const note equals this.props.notes. How do we find the one at that ID? Square bracket, right? New ID. Set current note. Just note ought to do, because the variable has the same name as the key in the object. How's that seem? Let's see. Switch to our morning. Let's look at our data. I have one with this ID right here. So I'm going to copy that ID. And let's see what happens if I go to, well, I better be signed in when I do this. I don't see any notes. Oh, man. Everything explode in a profoundly unhelpful place. But it doesn't tell us where the problem is, but it does say cannot read property ID of undefined. Were we just checking for a property called ID on something? Yep. This.props.match params, undefined. If you go to /notes, that's not there, right? What if we just comment this out for right now? And go to /notes without an ID after it. Go to note form. Look at the props. We still have match. We still have params, but it's an empty object. It said undefined. Interesting. So that should have just been undefined. The ID should have been undefined. But I could say if this.props.match.params, then do that thing. An empty object is falsy in JavaScript. Here's a way to test that, by the way, if you wanted to figure out whether something is truthy or falsy. When I say truthy or falsy, I mean if you put it in an if statement, will it evaluate as true or false, even though it's not a Boolean. So I want to test empty object. Here's a way to do that, since I don't think we've had occasion to actually use this. How about just throw not in front of it? Double negative will make it turn it into a Boolean. True. What? True? Really? Oh. What? Empty arrays are false. What am I doing wrong? Empty strings are. Yeah, empty strings are. Empty arrays and objects are not. Okay. But it looked like we actually had a problem if we tried to get to ID. It's not just that ID was undefined. It said we tried to get ID on something that was undefined. But this props.match didn't look undefined to me. This props.match.params. It was just empty. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, well, it didn't explode. That's good. And if we do go to one that has an ID now, it doesn't explode. I don't see that it did anything that we wanted it to. Current note is still empty. Oh, and you know what? It probably doesn't belong to this user. It's probably the other user. So let's keep this. I'm going to copy this URL. Sign out. Yeah, okay, it's when we sign out that it has a problem. What do we do when we sign out? The only thing we changed was that we removed this from here. ID of undefined. And it doesn't tell me where. Sign in doesn't try to get the ID of anything. We don't even pass any props down to sign in. How do we property ID of undefined? Oh, when we try to remove binding. So it's remove binding from rebase. That has a problem. We haven't even gotten any further than that. That's interesting. Let's see if this would seem. Let's see if this is to blame. Let's just comment that out. Try this again. Hit sign out. I still have a problem. So it's not this. It's when we actually run this. Inside of remove binding, it's running into something that's undefined that it doesn't expect to be. You figure out whether I'm signed in or not right now. If I just go to localhost 3000, which place does it redirect me? Redirects me to notes. So I'm signed in, but strangely enough, I don't actually see any notes at all. Well, that doesn't mean I'm signed in. It just means I have a UID in state. Let's find our app component. UID is there. So we've got $R should now be this component because that's how the dev tools work. $R dot set state UID to null. Yes, right. That's an object. I don't know why I made that a string. Okay. Now it thinks I'm undefined. I don't know what Firebase actually thinks at this point. Let's try signing back in. Somehow I got in this weird state of limbo where I was signed out, but it didn't know I was signed out because I hadn't gotten down to actually clearing out the state. So now let's see what happens. If I go to the right thing, oops. I hope that when stuff like this happens, you don't just start tuning out, because it is actually valuable, I think, to see someone else troubleshoot and how they approach it. They try to talk through in detail what I'm exploring here. Okay, so again, I concluded that this note probably doesn't belong to this user. So I tried to sign out, and then everything exploded. It didn't explode this time because now I have this commented out. So basically, here's what I think happened. This thing received the new props before I got around to actually getting that component off the page. And at that point, the ID was bad. So I could even check if this .props.match. It seems to be .params that was the problem. So .params and this .props match .params.id. So in an AND, if the first part, since they both have to be true, if the left part evaluates to false, it will never even check the right one. So it will never get around to even trying to get to ID. If params was undefined, then the first part will be false. I'm trying to call ID on something that's undefined, and I suspect that it's this. So let's try it out. Let's sign in again. Now let's go to that specific ID. I'm now signed in as the user that I think owns it. Okay, I've got some problems. We can deal with that later. No form is changing a controlled input of type text to be uncontrolled. Okay, we'll deal with that. Sign out. Still explodes. Cannot read property ID of undefined. And just to confirm, if I do in fact blow away UID from state, okay, it still reloaded it from local storage. I need to do that too. Again, find my app component because that's where the state is. That way I can get to $R. Set state, UID null, local storage, set item, UID, remove item, UID. Why am I doing this? Because my sign out flow is getting interrupted. So I'm in this weird state where I'm not sure whether Firebase thinks I'm logged in or not. Okay, so now I'm signed out, I think. I must be, because when it does the on-auth state changed, it's not logging me in. What did I do? I want to again try to determine whether this is really the problem. So I'm going to sign in. I'm going to go to that URL. I'm not sure whether that's even part of the problem or not. I'm going to click sign out. Yeah, this is still the problem somehow. Still trying to get to ID of undefined even though we put the safety check in here. Oh, well, it's not this props anyway. It's next props. Right? Oops. So that could have been true. It could have been true that this .props had params, but maybe next props did not. Because new ID is not this .props.match params. It is next props. You colossal doofus. Of course, this doesn't work. I'm not sure that was the problem, but that was a problem. So again, I'll sign in. I'll go back to that specific route that I had copied with an ID in it. Okay, it still gives me this warning. Let's see what happens when if I log out. It still explodes. The only thing I'm calling ID on is this, and I just checked whether it was set. whether it was undefined. Property ID of undefined. But it's ref ID inside remove binding. And that is this. What you get when you do sync state. And what on earth does that have to do with the component will receive props inside note form? Why does commenting this out fix it? Well, it didn't that time. Yeah, it didn't that time. Which makes me think it has something to do with what we're doing with local storage, except those are all... What have I done? What hath Davy wrought? So sign out. We sign out, and after that's finished, we remove the binding. We reset the current node. We do this, we do that. I could at least move this to the end. So that it gets through doing those other things first. So I don't have to keep manually removing those things from state. Seemed to make it to sign out first that time. That's interesting. Again, this is all commented out, so that's not the problem. Here's what's up. Well, when I try to sign out, I get an error inside remove binding. Ref.id, cannot read property ID of undefined. So ID of this ref is what gets set when we do sync notes here. So the ref, I'm signing out when the ref is null, which it should be redirecting me if I'm not signed in. It is when I sign out that the error happens. So it must have something to do with the way I'm doing local storage, but because I have a UID, so it shows me as signed in before this is actually signed in. So this may not have happened yet, but it should happen right away if I'm really logged in.
Last time we tried signing out, we done it since we redid the Firebase rules.
Yeah. Because we showed off the fact that, yeah, because we tested whether we could still get to things when signed out. And heck, we tested our sign in, sign out routes just a few minutes ago. It changed recently. What happens if I just don't do this whole remove, or this whole local storage thing? So I don't set it, I don't load it. Find that time. What I've been doing is this, and then pasting in, oops, now it's gone. Pasting in this user, this ID. And then signing out. Still fine. Do it one more time. Oops, gosh dang it. Fine. I put the local storage stuff back in. You know what? How about we do that last? I don't know why that would make this ref undefined, but so what's going on right now? It seems to think I'm signed in, but I don't seem to have any notes. So right now, okay, yeah, I'm just doing it last. Yeah, when it was totally commented out, it was fine. So I think, yeah, the problem is I'm not removing this. So I'm never becoming signed out because we're getting to the error first. So let's see. Now my sign out button is gone. That's interesting. Okay. Okay, it exploded, but I probably really got signed out. So now I can sign back in. Okay. And sign out. Sign in. Visit a more specific ID. Sign out. Fine. What? What? I didn't change anything, really.
Well, you moved it below the set state, right?
I did, yeah.
So you think it was somehow.
Yeah, what's that got? What's one got to do with the other?
Well, if the auth state change, retrieved it from local storage.
No, that's in the component will mount. Why would that fix it? I'm just skeptical that it's really fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Race condition being, depending on when things finish relative to when I click it and so on, it may or may not break. But I seem to be able to break it every time. If I do move this back up before that, why on earth would that matter? Sign in. Sign out. What? Okay, so what about visiting a particular ID? I don't know why that would matter. Still fine. I can't break it again. It doesn't make me feel very good because nothing changed.
Are you sure your UID is being stored in the local storage? Because I'm trying the same thing you are, and it's not even there. I'm kind of confused about. Oh, by the way, Firebase also stores it.
Firebase has a bunch of stuff in there. Oh, I'm not signed in, so let's sign in. UID. Sign out. Goes away. Sign in. This stuff is commented out right now for what it's worth. Not that that should make any gosh darn difference. Okay. Now I feel like I have excessive safety checks here because match param should always be there. I did that because I thought that was the problem, but I don't think it was really. Sign out. Sign in. Okay. Okay, well, we'll proceed for now.